Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Choosing a Business Space in Fairfax County. I'm Alan Fogg. I am delighted to be here as your MC this afternoon. I am the Vice President for Marketing Communications here at the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, and we have a great program lined up for you today. This event is a partnership of my agency, the Economic Development Authority, which promotes Fairfax County as a business location. And we work with businesses of all kinds to start, grow, and locate here. It's also our partner in this event is Fairfax County Land Development Services, which has a mission of ensuring that all development in Fairfax County meets the safety and health standards of all applicable building codes. And they are here to make sure that everybody who's in a space is doing it the right way and is able to be successful at what they're doing. So 3 points that we're going to hit today. One is we think this is a great place to start and grow a business, and we're thrilled that you are part of this. 2, we're delighted that you are interested in starting and growing a business here. And 3, we are ready to help you find the right space so that you can grow your business. And as you help your family, you're going to help your county as well. So we're going to have great information to help us make these points. We're going to hear from Jennifer Josiah of Land Development Services, who's got a great overview of what her department provides. Then Jennifer's going to lead a panel discussion of experts from Land Development Services that cover every kind of building, zoning permit issue, anything relating to the fire marshal's office that you have to know about if you're going to be choosing a business space in the county. So we're really thrilled to get this going, and we're going to get this going by having some opening remarks from Alex Imes, who is Executive Vice President of the Economic Development Authority. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alan, and good afternoon, everyone. I am so pleased to be here to speak with you about starting or expanding a business and finding a space to do that. It's an exciting time to be speaking with you about that because commercial space is filling up again. We saw nationally office occupancy up above 40% for the holidays before taking a dive related to the Omicron variant, but now it is creeping up again in that range. Spaces where we build our teams, design creative solutions, and come together with our customers. And we have a great team here at the county. The experts here today with Land Development Services and Planning and Development to talk to you about getting started or finding your next business location. And just a little bit about our county as a location for your business and your space. We have such a wide variety of buildings, neighborhoods, and types of spaces for all types of companies, from small ones, mid-sized to Fortune 500s. We're here to help you find the right space to suit your needs. We have more than 119 million square feet of office space in Fairfax County. We're the second largest suburban office market in the US and the largest in the DC metro area. So certainly quite a bit to choose from. And also in terms of neighborhoods, you have the high-tech corridor from Tysons to Dulles, including Reston, and you have the Central Fairfax Center, Merrifield, I-95. So you name it, we are a large county with a large variety of spaces to meet your needs, whatever type of business that you're operating, or if you're a federal contractor. We certainly have a large presence in submarkets there as well. I also wanted to mention that we're still growing. We're actually still adding office space and leasing it, in terms of the growth of new buildings. 2.1 million square feet of new construction underway at the end of 2021, and 5 million square feet of office space was leased in Fairfax County in 2021. So certainly still quite a bit of activity in the market, companies seeking the right space to build those teams and deliver for their customers. We work very closely with real estate developers and specialists. We have our own proprietary data and market intelligence to share with you, and we can assist you with site selection for industrial office space and site recommendations and tour coordination with those in our networks. We also connect very closely with the partners on the line again today with Land Development Services and Department of Planning and Development. You'll hear from to assist you through the permitting and zoning application process. And we can also provide you with a list of alternative office spaces throughout the county. We have over 600,000 square feet of alternative office spaces in the county, like co-working spaces, incubators, accelerators, virtual office space, traditional executive office suites. There's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of variable product in the market right now to help you meet your needs. And I want to mention a couple of those that are out there that provide these additional services in a co-working space, like advice on financing, management, and product development. So you have places like Refraction, Brickyard, Intelligent Office, Region, Office Evolution, and many more with co-working spaces located throughout the county as an additional option to those that I already mentioned. So please feel free to reach out to us for more information on how we can help your company find the best location. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with all of you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. That was a great overview of really the situation that exists in the county for business owners of all kinds. Now I'd like to introduce Helman Castro, who's the Deputy Director of Land Development Services, other side of the partnership for this event. And he's going to give you an overview of what his office does. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Alan, and thank you. My name is Helman Castro. I am a Deputy Director in Fairfax County's Land Development Services Department. I'm glad to be here with all of you this afternoon. I look forward to partnering with you and EDA to assist in any way we can to help your business have a successful start. Deciding where to do business is always challenging, but I am certain you will find Fairfax County a great place to work and prosper. Fairfax County's vibrant economy attracts commerce of all types. In fact, more than 90% of businesses in Fairfax County are small ones. So let me tell you a little bit about what our agency, Land Development Service, does and how it can help you. Like the name suggests, we're involved in the land development process. Every year, we oversee over $1.5 billion worth of construction. Every year, we issue around 70,000 permits, anything from the kitchen sink in your house to all the construction permits required for a high-rise building and everything in between. We review design plans for horizontal construction, also known as site plans, and we review plans for vertical construction, also known as building plans. In addition, we perform over 200,000 construction inspections a year, so you can imagine we're pretty busy. But we do not do this work alone. We work with other agencies in the county. Some of them are represented here in this webinar, and you will hear from them in just a few moments. I want to express my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to assist you in selecting a place that fits your business needs. It can be challenging at times, but the more you know about the process and things to watch out for, the better off you're going to be transforming your investment of time into value. To that end, we have assembled a great team of county staff to answer questions that you may have about finding a suitable place for your business in the county. Again, thank you, and we look forward to working with you. And with that, back to you, Alan.
Thank you, Helman. Wow, 70,000 permits a year and 200,000 inspections. Yes, this is a great place and very, very busy. So thank you very much for that. Next up, we are delighted to have Jennifer Josiah with Land Development Services to talk a little bit more in detail about the best way for you to go about choosing your business space. So Jennifer, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Alan. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Josiah. I'm a project manager with Fairfax County Land Development Services, and I'm delighted to be here today, along with my colleagues, to give entrepreneurs an idea of the steps necessary to establish a small business in a space in Fairfax County. We're mostly focusing today on the operation of a business out of an existing building, as the construction of a new building is a much more complicated process. We have with us today the building official with Land Development Services, Jay Riat, Deputy Fire Chief John Walzer, formerly of the Fire Marshal's Office, and Assistant Zoning Administrator Andrew Hushauer, and Assistant Branch Chief of the Zoning Permits Branch, Catherine Lunsford. You'll be able to ask them your questions at an expert panel after this presentation, so please use the Q&A feature if you have questions during the presentation. Next slide, please. Your first step is to identify all of the activities that will normally occur in your business. in the operation of your business in order to figure out how your business fits into the zoning ordinance. Is it strictly an office? Are you cooking or making things? Do you offer classes? Do you provide childcare? If you can't figure out exactly how your business fits into the zoning ordinance, then request a use determination from the zoning administrator so that they can determine where you fit. Once you know how you fit into the zoning ordinance, you'll know the zoning district you can locate in. Here's an example of a use that doesn't quite fit into the zoning ordinance. A business that retrofits existing vehicles with armoring, providing their secure vehicles to diplomats and security officials, wanted to locate in Fairfax County. It wasn't a car dealership, and it wasn't a car repair garage. It was not something that was defined or even described in the zoning ordinance, and it took a significant amount of research and discussion to determine how the business fits into the ordinance. Once the zoning administrator made a determination, the business was able to locate in the appropriate zoning district and begin operation. Here's another example of an interesting and different business model. A halal butcher wanted to locate in Fairfax County. However, he wanted to provide the live animals for the customers to choose, and he would slaughter and dress them on site, allowing the customer to walk away with their fresh meat. The butcher explained that this type of business fills a cultural need for a large amount of people in the area. This type of operation was not envisioned in the ordinance, and again, took much research and discussion to categorize the use. Next slide, please. Based on what your business operations are, what kind of space do you need? Do you need a warehouse, an office, a retail space, or a combination of different types of spaces? Will you be operating your business out of your home or a vehicle like a food truck? Different spaces have different rules, which are regulated by different county and state agencies. Make sure you understand the different entities that will regulate your operation so that you can choose a space that meets those standards. If you can't find a space that's just right, then you can make changes to a space to comply with the regulations. These changes will most likely require permits and could involve hiring design professionals to ensure compliance with county and state regulations. Say an entrepreneur wanted to operate an art studio and hold art instruction classes for children out of their home basement. They wanted to be able to have 2 classes a day during the summer with 10 students each. Unfortunately, the maximum number of students permitted by the zoning ordinance for the home-based business is 4 at a time and no more than 8 in a day. If they had rented a commercial space, they would not have been restricted to class size except by the amount of parking available on site. Another potential new tenant would like to occupy space that was previously used as a retail space. The new tenant would like to use the space as a maker space and invite different makers on a rotating basis to demonstrate their processes and sell their goods. Because the new tenant is looking to provide shows or demonstrations that could attract over 50 people at a time, the building use group would change to an assembly use, which may require upgrades in ventilation systems, plumbing facilities, and fire safety systems. The new tenant would need to factor this work into their feasibility analysis for the site. Next slide, please. Most uses in the zoning ordinance have an associated amount of parking that is required. It is very important to understand that you'll need to provide the amount of parking required. It may look like there's plenty of parking available, but every use on that site you've chosen has a certain amount of required parking, and there may only be a few spaces left over for your use. If you plan to move into a space that was previously occupied by a use that had a lower parking requirement, then you'll need to have a parking tabulation approved. This tabulation needs to be prepared by a licensed civil engineer, and it costs just under $1,000 to submit. So be sure to hire an engineer who's familiar with parking tabulations, because every submission has the same fee and several submissions could get very costly. As an example, a potential new tenant who runs a nonprofit that has been determined to be a service organization would like to rent a space that was previously used for an office. The parking rate for an office is 3.6 spaces for every 1,000 square feet of leased space. The parking rate for the service organization is 1 space for every 3 people based upon the occupancy load and 1 space for every employee on shift. For a 1,000 square foot space, the office parking requirement was only 4 spaces. However, the potential new tenant may need to provide up to 20 or 30 spaces, depending upon the occupancy load calculations, and the site may not be able to accommodate them. If the new potential tenant can demonstrate that their activities occur at hours that are not coincidental with the other office uses on the site, then they can potentially obtain a parking reduction, but this may require a Board of Supervisors action. Keep in mind that these parking processes can take a significant amount of time and money, so it's best to figure out how much parking your use requires and then find a space that has the appropriate amount. Next slide, please. Some uses in the zoning ordinance are permitted, but need a closer look because they may have some characteristics that could impact neighbors. These impacts could relate to noise, odors, large numbers of customers, etc. Such uses would be subject to either a special permit or a special exception, which are approved by boards and involve public hearings. Special permits are reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and special exceptions are reviewed by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Some uses may also require review by other local boards and commissions. The board review processes take time, money, and the hiring of design and land use professionals. So it's very important to understand early in your search for a space if your use will need a board approval to establish your business. Here's an example. A dog kennel is permitted in the more intense commercial districts by right, as long as the animals are kept completely inside. If the business owner would like to have an outdoor play and potty area for the animals, then they need to obtain a special exception and would be subject to development conditions, possibly limiting the number of animals they could have at any one time, requiring the installation of vegetation to help block the view of the site and reduce the noise coming from the site, and limiting the hours that the animals could be outside. Another thing worth considering is that while industrial space is generally less expensive to rent, a restaurant in an industrial district would require a special exception. The zoning ordinance also sets standards for the architectural features of the space, where a restaurant may locate in an industrial district and how the parking and access ways must be situated. Next slide, please. You will most likely need to hire professionals, regardless of whether you need a board approval. You'll probably have to hire a licensed architect for building permits and a licensed civil engineer for a parking tabulation. You may need to hire a land use attorney if you need board approvals to help in the application package and to represent you at the public hearings. If you need to do work to the space, then you should hire licensed contractors. You can check if contractors and tradesmen are licensed online at dpor.virginia.gov. We'll give you a list of helpful websites at the conclusion of this webinar. Consider this scenario. An entrepreneur who established a school for adult education in an office condo complex did not obtain a non-rep prior to beginning their operation. A violation was issued for the lack of the non-rep or certificate of occupancy and for the lack of permits for work that had been done inside. The entrepreneur tried to rectify the permit violation by getting a friend to draw up electrical and plumbing plans. In the long run, it cost the entrepreneur money in resubmission fees and time, whereas if they had hired a licensed design professional, the permit would have been issued quickly. In a different scenario, a business owner wanted to move into a commercial space that had previously been a different use with a lower hazard category than the entrepreneur's use. The entrepreneur had to hire a licensed architect to perform what's called a code analysis, where they compare the previous use to the proposed use and show how the existing building complies with the building code. The architect found that there were some minor changes needed and drew up plans to submit along with the building permit application. Once the permit was issued, the entrepreneur hired a licensed contractor to do the work and was able to occupy the space quickly, confident that the space was in compliance with the building and safety codes. Next slide, please. It depends on your business model, but you'll most likely need a permit of some type, even a sign permit. If your tenant space that you've chosen needs any work done to accommodate your business, then you need a building permit. If your use requires more parking than the previous use, then you need a parking tabulation. If your use is different than the previous use, then you need a change of use building permit, which could involve the upgrading of mechanical, plumbing, electrical, or fire safety systems. If your business produces food, you may need permits from the health department or the Virginia Department of Agricultural and Consumer Services. You may need a building permit and a license from the Virginia Department of Education if you're providing childcare outside of your home. Home-based businesses, including home childcare operations, also require zoning permits. Food trucks require fire marshal permits, health department permits, and zoning permits. To help you through the requirements, we have a permitting wizard on our website that helps you step-by-step determine what you need and shows you how to apply for it. Next slide, please. In March of 2020, LDS, Land Development Services, transitioned into a fully virtual permitting process due to the public health concerns of COVID-19. The first step for a building or trades permit is done in our Fairfax Inspections Database Online, or FIDO. This is where the permit is initiated, fees are paid, and the permit is ultimately issued. By clicking on the red link at the top, you can find step-by-step instructions for how to use FIDO and its sister software for plan review, ePlans, or Project Docs. Project Docs is where all of the building and trades plans are uploaded and reviewed. Zoning permits, including special permits, special exceptions, home-based business permits, home childcare permits, and food truck permits are all processed in our new planning and land use system called PLUS. Health department permits are also processed through the PLUS system. PLUS will be replacing FIDO and Project Docs in the fall of 2022 and will become Fairfax County's primary permitting system. Next slide, please. If you disagree with how the zoning administrator decided that your business operation fits into the zoning ordinance, you can appeal the determination to the Board of Zoning Appeals, known as the BZA. You only have 30 days to file the appeal after the determination has been made, and will most likely have to hire a land use lawyer to represent you in the appeal process. The BZA is appointed by the Circuit Court and is a quasi-judicial board, not a politically appointed board, and the Board of Supervisors has no influence on the BZA. Similarly, any decision in the building permit process can be appealed to the local Board of Building Code Appeals. The local board, appointed by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, has varying areas of expertise and experience as architects, engineers, or builders. Next slide, please. Once your building permits have been issued, you or your licensed contractor can begin the work that is shown on the approved plans. Inspections for all different agencies are required at different points in the work schedule. Most inspections are done in person, but some are done virtually via your smartphone. The final inspection for the space must pass prior to occupancy of the space. Other inspections are also needed, depending on the type of business you have. Some fire safety inspections are needed on an annual basis. Health department inspections are needed for food safety, childcare centers, commercial swimming pools, hotels, and tattoo and massage establishments, and are done on a regular basis. Childcare operations, regardless of whether they're home-based or in a commercial space, are also inspected by different regulatory agencies on a regular basis. Next slide, please. After the construction has been completed and inspected and the parking tabulation, if it's needed, has been approved, you can apply for your non-residential use permit, or non-RUP, which is also a certificate of occupancy. Within 5 days of obtaining a non-RUP and after operation of the business begins, a post-occupancy inspection by a fire marshal inspector is always required. From this visit, the inspector will determine which fire prevention code permits will be required. A non-RUP is required for every non-residential use in Fairfax County. Even if you're taking over a space or business with no changes, you must get a new non-RUP due to the change in ownership. Operating a business without a non-RUP is a violation of the zoning ordinance. Next slide, please. Pop-ups are popular and a wonderful way to pull a community together, but it's important to check with zoning, the building division, and the fire marshal's office during your planning stage for a pop-up event. There are permits that may be needed and regulations that must be adhered to during your pop-up event. Stages may need building permits and tents may need both building and fire permits. It's always best to check at the beginning planning stages of your event to make sure that you can comply with the regulations. Next slide, please. Here are the top 10 mistakes entrepreneurs make when locating their business. They sign a lease immediately without checking the regulations and making sure that the business will actually be able to work there. They fail to check the zoning district to ensure that the use is allowed in the space. They fail to ensure that there's enough parking on the site for their use. They fail to get the required building permits. They try to retrofit a space when another space would have worked better. They fail to schedule and pass inspections when they actually do get building permits. They fail to hire professionals for plans and public hearings. They hire unlicensed contractors or friends, and the work doesn't meet the standards of the associated codes. They fail to get a home-based business permit when one is needed. They fail to get a non-rep. Next slide, please. Here are some helpful websites. We provide many ways to contact us at Land Development Services, helpful instructions for filing your permit applications online, and information on when permits are necessary. We also have information on how to hire a contractor and how to check if they're licensed. The Fire Marshal's Office has a wonderfully comprehensive website to help you through their processes, as does the Department of Planning and Development. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you have your questions all ready for us. Be sure to put them in the Q&A. Now I'll hand it back over to Alan before we launch into our expert panel.
Wow, Jennifer, thank you so much. That was really interesting. And here I thought you were the permit wizard, but there is a permit wizard online. So, and of course, this being Fairfax County, everything can be done online. So thank you very much for a really interesting overview of everything that these folks need to do it right, to get into the right space. So before we go to the expert panel though, why don't we do a poll? So here's what we'd like to know from our audience. Have you ever applied for a zoning or building permit in Fairfax County? So pick one. Yes, I have applied for a zoning permit. Yes, I've applied for a building permit. Yes, I've applied for both a zoning and building permit, or no, I have never applied for either permit. Go ahead and answer that. We'll give you a few seconds. All righty, let's see the results, shall we? Very interesting. So a really strong majority, Jennifer, of folks here have not ever applied for either permit. So to me, that is saying that what you're providing today is extremely valuable information that these folks, they need to know all this before they start on this journey.
Absolutely, I agree completely. Thank you. And that helps us for our panel to know who our audience is as well.
Well, why don't you take the panel, and I'm sure this is going to be very interesting as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alan. We have an amazing wealth of knowledge with us today, and we'll now provide you with an opportunity to ask your questions of our expert panel. Deputy Fire Chief John Walzer, has recently been promoted, but in his role in the Fire Marshal's Office in the Fire and Rescue Department, he was responsible for the Fire Prevention Technical Service section, which includes engineering plans review, fire protection systems, and revenue and records. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Lehigh University and received his Master of Science degree in Fire Protection Engineering from Worcester Polytechnic University. Jay Riat is the Fairfax County Building Official and Director of the Building Division at Land Development Services. He's also an ICC certified building official and a registered professional engineer, as well as a project management professional. A graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University, Jay's background is in HVAC, electrical, and plumbing design and code compliance. Andrew Hushauer is the Assistant Zoning Administrator and oversees the zoning permits section of the Department of Planning and Development, which reviews and issues all zoning related permits for Fairfax County. Andrew received his undergraduate degree in urban and regional planning at Virginia Tech and a master's in public administration at George Mason University. Catherine Lunsford is the Assistant Branch Chief under Andrew Hushauer, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the zoning permit section technician counter. In calendar year 2021, Catherine's section reviewed more than 15,000 permits to confirm compliance with the zoning ordinance. Catherine received her undergraduate degree in public relations from Virginia Commonwealth University and a graduate certificate in local government management from Virginia Tech. So welcome, panel members. Everyone in the audience, please be sure to use the Q&A feature to ask your questions. And now we'll get started. So, do I have to provide accessible facilities if I'm only doing a little bit of work in the space? How about we have our building official answer that one?
Hi, Jennifer, thank you for asking the question and for the presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. Jay Riat, building official, Fairfax County. Just recently started in July, transitioned over from our previous one, was Brian Foley. I think you saw the picture of the non-rup there. It had Brian's signature on there, so it was nice to see that as well. But to get to your question, so yes, by default, when doing a tenant fit out, the space is required to be brought to 100% compliance with the current accessibility code. We know that this could potentially, be a deterrent from taking over a space due to having to make accessibility upgrades and significant increasing the cost of the project. So for this reason, Virginia Construction Code and Fairfax County requires that you only spend an amount equal to 20% of the cost of the renovation project on accessibility upgrades. So for example, if you have an office tenant, if somebody is moving into an office space in an existing building, and their alterations include new offices, corridors, and open office area, then the cost, and let's say the cost is $100,000 for that renovation, an additional $20,000 or 20% must be spent on accessibility upgrades. If you're making a restroom 100% accessible, exceeds the 20%, so we can only hold you to that 20% requirement. If making a restroom exceeds that 20%, you can either spend the money and go ahead and make it 100% accessible at your preference, or you can simply make smaller upgrades such as adding grab bars, creating accessible stalls, or upgrading the route to that restroom to meet the 20% requirement. Alternatively, if it's not technically feasible, then you could claim an exemption or exception from the code requirement here. And what technically infeasible means is that providing an accessible element to meet that 20% requirement would involve removal of or alteration of a structural member of that building that is an essential part of the structural portion of that building. So I hope I have answered that question completely.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jay. Okay, we have another one. I have a home-based bakery. I'd like to move to a retail space. Should I work with a commercial real estate agent? I'm wondering if maybe Andrew might want to take that one.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, Andrew Shower, Assistant Zoning Administrator. Specifically to your question, do you need a commercial real estate agent? That would really be up to you if you wanted to hire somebody to look for one. It depends, and as far as the zoning end of it, it would really depend on, are you going to are you selling at farmers markets? Is it like a home-based business, or do you anticipate customers coming? If you do anticipate customers coming, it would be a full-blown, retail or food production type activity, and you would have to be located in an appropriate zoning district to do that. And even in that regard, depending on whether you're just going to produce it out of at a commercial location, maybe have customers come in, that is really, as I said, retail. But if you're gonna have like sit down and dining, it may be considered an eating establishment. So it really just depends on the specifics of your business. But certainly, commercial real estate agents can help you find, appropriate spaces, once you find out what the appropriate zoning is. So really talking with somebody, within my division, zoning administration division, we could definitely help point you in the right direction and help you sort out really the specifics of your business. I will say that with a lot of new businesses, when they start, the beginning sort of stages of the business, when you build it, when it's in its infancy, you may be operating much differently. And we always encourage people to really think about, long-term, really, how do you want the business to change? Because the activity that you're doing in the beginning may be classified slightly differently than what you would envision it when it's a much more mature business, and you have a lot more activity associated with it. So just something to think about.
Great, thank you. Okay, here's an interesting one. I'm starting a CBD health-related retail store. The retail place is move-in ready. All we'll need to do is cosmetic changes. Do I only need a certificate of occupancy? I think maybe, actually, I think all of you can answer this one. I'm interested though in Chief Walzer's response.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the question. And this one does bring up some important points, because a lot of times what people often think of as cosmetic changes do significantly alter the safety requirements that the code could require. So I think the best bet is always to enlist the assistance of a consultant to make sure that you're meeting the code requirements. And for instance, one of the potential struggles could be adding an interior finish that may not be compliant with the way the space has previously been approved. So that's just one example of a problem or a hurdle that a new business owner could run into. So you wouldn't want to spend good money after bad, basically, and you want to make sure that you do the right things up front, and design professionals or consultants are the best avenue to really help protect your money and your investment.
Great, thank you. This is actually one that I could answer. Does Fairfax County have a database for facilities that are available for nonprofit use for rent or sale? I am the Nonprofits and Places of Worship Coordinator for Land Development Services, and my work bridges across all the different agencies. And, I help nonprofits through the development process from concept through to occupancy. We do not keep a database for facilities. That is unfortunately something that I cannot provide you with, but it is good to go to a commercial realtor to be able to get that information. Okay, let's go back to Chief Walzer. How do I know if I need a fire prevention permit?
So Jennifer, as you spoke earlier, all businesses require a post-occupancy inspection, and that is one of the avenues that we use as the fire marshals in the community, that we go out, conduct the post-occupancy inspection for fire safety requirements, and our fire inspectors will evaluate your business for not only how it's occupied, but also the regulated processes that may be conducted within your business. And then they would determine your permit needs and make sure that with our new Plus system, that those applications are sent to you so that you can fill out the proper information. And then we'll follow up with that permit inspection at a later date.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Some of these questions I think are more for realtors than for us. What is the usual turnaround time for permits to be approved for food service or office space? Are you able to do cosmetic touch-ups in the space while waiting on permits for larger renovations? We do have on our website, we do have metrics for our permit turnarounds. So feel free to go there to take a look, to get an idea of how long it will take for your specific type of permit. That's in terms of land development services. But I think the cosmetic touch-ups in the space while you're waiting on permits for larger renovations, I think, John, you touched on that a little bit before.
Yes, and from a fire marshal's perspective, a lot of the life safety provisions that are in the code, specifically like sprinklers, fire alarms, you cannot do any work prior to receiving an approved permit. And really, this helps protect owners, because you wouldn't want to head down a particular path, then submit plans and realize that there's a problem with what you're doing. And then you'd have to revise what you've built, again, spending your good money after bad. So it's always best to have that permit in hand prior to making any changes within your space, if one's required. And there's a lot of detailed information on the LDS website to really clarify when construction permits are required.
Great, thank you. Here's an interesting one. Would it be possible to lease a warehouse space and turn it into a shared makerspace with multiple tenants, assuming the lease allows subleasing? What permits or inspections would be needed? Would each subtenant need to get permits and pass inspections? Jay, do you want to take a crack at that one?
Yes, absolutely. It's a very interesting question. So from what I understand, we've got a warehouse space and it's going to be kind of subdivided into additional tenant spaces, assuming, of course, the lease allows it. What permits or inspections would be needed? Yes, you would definitely need to have permits. Well, there's also probably a zoning part of this as well. Each space would have to be given its own address, A, B, C, D designation. If you're going to put up demising walls, of course, you would definitely need a permit because these things could impact egress out of these spaces, depending upon what these individual spaces are using their spaces for. I mean, I would definitely say full building permit with, ventilation issues are going to be up, electrical, plumbing, you're going to have to ensure that there are plumbing facilities available. So definitely you'll have to apply for a building permit, and then under that, it's likely you'll have to submit plans for each different tenant space for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and also architectural plans that show the life safety.
Great. Anybody else want to jump in on that one? No, okay. Okay, I think, like I said, a lot of these questions are more geared towards realtors that could answer them. And we definitely, it is advantageous of you to work with a professional who understands zoning and our processes and what may be needed in terms of the building code. Here's one. Can you begin stocking shelves and training employees prior to getting a final building inspection? Chief Walzer, can you answer that one?
This is an important question for future business owners so that they can establish a timeline when they can expect to occupy their space. So understanding the distinction between stocking and training is really important. And it's also important to build the time into your timeline to make sure that you get all your required inspections and approvals that line up with when you expect your business to be open. So the stocking provisions actually do allow you to stock your shelves. Most oftentimes it's in a mercantile occupancy so that you can begin moving in. You can't conduct training until you have received full approval or you've gotten your non-rep and your certificate of occupancy. But there are specific provisions that are in place for that stocking of shelves, where as long as you have a sprinkler system that's been inspected and approved, and there are flow switches that are connected to the fire alarm system, and you've worked with your building inspector to ensure that a few other items are in place for the safety, not only of the workers in the building, but also our firefighters who would potentially respond to any events in that building. There are avenues that you can begin stocking. So it's a communication with your building inspector and having that sprinkler system functional, approved, and tied into the fire alarm system.
Great, thank you. I have a question for Andrew and Catherine. Do I need a permit for every sign that I want to put up for my business?
Yeah, I'll answer that. And if Catherine wants to jump in, she can feel free. The answer is it depends. The way that we define a sign in the zoning ordinance, it has to be visible from a public street or travelway. And so in most cases, the answer is probably gonna be yes, because most people, obviously, as a business owner, you want to advertise your business to the traveling public, and you're going to put it at places where it's going to be visible, typically at the entrance to the development, or if it's a standalone business, the vehicular entrance, or you're going to have them on the walls of your building. So in most cases, yes, you will need a permit for that. And there are a lot of provisions in the zoning ordinance that explain how much signage you can have, both freestanding and building mounted.
Great. Okay. Here's a question for Jay. Can I start to do interior demolition work before my permit for the other work in my unit is issued?
Great question. Yes, you can. You are required to apply for a demo permit, though, as long as no life safety items or core items of the building are affected. You'll likely receive that demo permit right away. If you do have life safety items that are being altered, then of course we will require plans before we can issue that demo permit. You can apply for both the demo permit and interior alteration permit at the same time, and I can almost 99% certainty tell you that the demo permit will be issued before the interior alteration, and you'll be able to do the demo work prior to the issuance of the interior alt permit in most cases.
Great, thank you. Oh, here's one that people are always surprised at the answer to. Jay, this is for you again. Do I need permits to build cubicles in my space, office cubicles?
Yeah, absolutely. So permits are usually required to build cubicles, and this is because an increase in cubicle space or seating space impacts the occupant load and, of course, the designed egress and life safety components of the space. So further, it also impacts accessible routes. So usually cubicles are also provided with power and sometimes other low voltage wiring, such as hardwired internet connection. And so these also require electrical permits.
Great, thank you. Okay, here's a question for our zoning folks. About how much time should I build into my feasibility analysis for a process where I have to go through either a special permit or a special exception?
So that zoning evaluation division actually handles that, not us, but I can tell you that we always tell people at least 6 months.
Great. And that's for the county process. That's not for their preparation with their design professionals.
Correct. That's once you have an accepted application, you're actually going through the process.
Right.
And I would only add that the special permit and the special exception, they sound similar, but they're actually very different. And as much as the special permits, it's an entitlement that goes to one particular review board, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they tend to they meet quite regularly, and because they're the only group that's going to offer any kind of an approval or a denial on an application, you can usually get those a little bit quicker. The special exceptions, though, go both to the county's planning commission as well as the Board of Supervisors. So it's actually a two-step public hearing process. And in that case, the planning commission does not have approval authority. They make recommendation, and then the recommendation goes to the board for another public hearing, and then the board has the final approval or denial authority on it. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at those.
Great, thank you. Here's one that I actually get a lot, and people are always very surprised at, and this one goes to Jay. Does the county have the tenant layout on file from the last permit from the site that I've picked that was obtained 8 years ago, so that I can give it to my design professional?
That's a good question. And it would be very convenient if we could find always the, the approved and stamped and designed work. But, I have to say if it's 8 years or 10 years or 20 years, it's unlikely due to the retention rules that the county must follow that we will have these documents on hand. Some cases are sent to a storage facility, but even at that point, it's sometimes it's not okay for us to disseminate that until the project is complete and all of the permits associated with the county approved plans that were done, say years ago, the clock for retention doesn't start. So it's possible that we would have something because maybe, let's say we have a high-rise building in which still some work is being done in that space, and you have a bunch of shell office levels in that high-rise building. I mean, it's possible that, plans for that shell are still available because, there's still some tenant work in that building that has stretched on for more than 4 or 5 years. I believe the retention is 3 to 5 years that we keep the plan from when it is finalized, from any inspections or plans are finalized associated with that permit. But again, if you were to request these, they would fall under the Freedom of Information Act as well.
Great. Well, I think we're just about out of time for our Q&A portion. Thank you to the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority for partnering to create this wonderful opportunity to educate entrepreneurs on the development process here in Fairfax County. And I'd also like to thank all of the attendees for helping to make this such an interesting discussion. Lastly, I'd also like to thank our panel experts for sharing their time with us today. The land development agencies are interested in supporting the business here in Fairfax County, so please reach out if you have ideas for other sessions like this. Back to you, Alan.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to the panelists. I take away that people are doing some interesting things out there, and that we have some really smart people in land development services and over at Department of Planning and Development to help them do what they want to do. So, and I guess the watchword is plan ahead, and get the county involved. So there's information for our friends at Land Development Services. And now I would really like to introduce Bill Hicks, who is the Director of Land Development Services, to give us some closing remarks for what people have learned today. Thank you, Bill.
Hey, thank you, Alan. I'm Bill Hicks. I'm the Director of Land Development Services, and it's my great pleasure to work with all of these staff on a daily basis to try and help get your projects through our process. And I want to start with my remarks in this way, is I want to say thank you to everyone who has participated in this, to participate in this afternoon's webinar. I think that it's a great opportunity for us to coordinate with you guys and provide a face to our permitting process. I also want to thank Alan for his great job of facilitating today, and all of the EDA. The EDA and Land Development Services have a very strong partnership. We celebrate that. We celebrate that here today with you, and we cherish it very much. I want to thank Alex for his moments to tell us about what a great place Fairfax County is, to many opportunities for us to work in and for you to build your businesses in. I want to say thank you to our panel members, John, Catherine, and Drew, and Jay. They have great teams. We work with them to see many projects through each year, and we are available to you to answer questions. Jennifer spent some time with us today, not only facilitating the panel discussion, but also talking through some key items that you should think about when you're choosing your place for your business. And she mentioned a few things I'll mention right here. She talked about thinking about what your use is in light of the zoning and any special considerations around that zoning. She talked about parking, and parking is often forgotten till the very end, so you want to think about that early. You want to think about the need for licensed professionals to help you through this process. And when we did the poll, we noted that very few of you had ever applied for one of these permits before. It's always advantageous to use a professional who's done this many times, who can help guide you to the end of this project. She talked about inspections, and she talked about those 10 common mistakes. Learn from those. It's always helpful to learn from someone else's issues than to have to do it yourself. Helman Castro is my deputy, and he spoke about the big volume of work that we see coming through the county annually. And it was over 70,000 permits, over 200,000 inspections, and really results in about $1.5 to $2 billion worth of construction value every year in the county. And so when you think about land development services and our partner agencies like the fire marshal or zoning administration, what you think about is that we are regulators and that we're out there looking for those minimum safety items or environmental compliance or zoning expectations. But the truth of the matter is that we, just like the EDA, are really key participants in the county's economic engine, just like you are individual pieces in that economic engine. And the very one thing I want you to remember as we sign off today is that we want you to succeed. That is the key. We want to issue permits. We want to conduct inspections on businesses that you have that will move forward. And so you've been given access to us. You know how to reach us. Please do let us help you help yourselves. Thank you, Alan.
Well, thank you, Bill. I have to say that is exactly the way to wrap this up, that we together, the Economic Development Authority and the Land Development Services, are here to help people succeed in Fairfax County. This is a great place to do it, and we are ready and willing and able to help you and do that. And as I said at the beginning, as you help your own situation, you're also helping the county in which you live. So we really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Bill, for being here. Okay, so earlier you saw contact information for Land Development Services, and here is some contact information for the Economic Development Authority. Our Karen Sma is director of our Diversity, Business, Investment, and Entrepreneurship division, and she spends so much time helping small business people start and grow their businesses in Fairfax County. So please get that contact information and let her know if she can help you. And she will get you in touch with everybody else in the process at the county. Karen couldn't be with us today. I hope you're feeling better, Karen. We look forward to seeing you back here very soon. Before I go, I really have to say a big thank you again to the Land Development Services folks for doing this with us. We're really pleased to have this collaboration with you. And I have to say thank you, thank you, thank you to our amazing special events team at the Economic Development Authority for putting on this webinar, and flawless execution as always. We really appreciate that kind of level of expertise. And it's just, again, another sign of how great Fairfax County is and what a great place this is to do business and grow your business here. So that's it for us here today. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate everybody for being with us today. You learned a lot. We're happy to be able to have the opportunity to give you that knowledge. So thank you very much. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day.